Welcome, Jeff, to this interview. Thanks for joining us to speak about your experience at PwC as a former tax partner, if I understood correctly. First question to you, how did you become an accountant?
Yes, so it was very interesting. I started my undergrad interested in business. I had thought of accounting as a good career. Being a CPA would be kind of career enhancing and kind of always have a job. So I went to undergrad, focused on accounting, not necessarily tax or audit, just accounting in general. When I graduated, it's a pretty tough job market, and so I started at a local firm here in St. Louis, and I kind of did everything, which was nice. I did auditing of the books all the way through to the tax return, mainly for small businesses, and so I really got a lot of experience in doing a lot of different things. So during that time, I kind of gravitated towards tax a little bit more. So decided how could I enhance my career? So I decided to go back to law school. Went to law school focusing solely on tax. Graduated from there and went to work at Coopers & Lybrand, which is, for those that don't know, the C in PwC.
Okay.
So a year after that, I merged with Pricewaterhouse and became PwC. At PwC, I was solely tax. Kind of gravitated after about a year there into international tax, which is an interesting field. It's not that I know everything about all tax laws in the world. That's impossible. No one can know that. But I did help U.S.-based companies invest abroad and also non-U.S. companies invest in the United States. So those cross-border transactions, I found it completely fascinating. I got to deal with lots of different people, lots of different cultures, lots of different rules, but kind of solving that business problem of how does that investment get structured the most tax efficient way. So I ended up doing that, Edwidge, for 25 years.
Wow.
So just finished in June 30th and retired from the firm and joined WashU.
But not retired at WashU,
Not
actually.
retired at
Very active.
WashU.
Yeah.
So I was teaching one class a year at WashU because I was thinking I wanted to kind of do this post PwC. At PwC, I did a lot from a teaching standpoint because the firms do a lot from a teaching in-house. And so I was volunteering for that. So I got very interested in helping young people advance their careers and their knowledge. Started doing some teaching at WashU about 8 years ago and took the big leap and joined you in the faculty.
Yes.
So I'm very, very interested and excited about this next phase of my career.
We are very happy to have you, obviously. But I have like a blunt comment.
Sure.
Most of us from the outside, we might have the wrong impression that accounting is a very boring profession. Is it truly the case?
Yeah, I do agree. That's a perception. My family members and you may ask similar type questions. I have found it as it's not at all boring. I find it fascinating. Working at a large accounting firm, I am involved at the ground floor of transactions when they first become of interest to a company, all the way through the execution of the planning and then the integration of whatever is being done to the existing business. So these things can take long periods of time. I touch lots of different parts of the company, decision makers within the company. Within the firm itself, I was always working with extremely smart people. That's one of the things I found nice about working at a large firm is the degree of complexity on the problems that we were dealing with. I always had an expert in the firm that I could find. Someone in the firm has always done that particular type of issue. So I found it very rewarding and exciting. I never knew what I was going to do in the next 6 months. That may unnerve some people. It was exciting to me because I knew that the companies I worked with were going to be doing something. I just didn't know what. And so it was not repetitive whatsoever. I never do tax returns. I don't fill out tax returns and tick and tie numbers. The area I practice in was tax, but it was a problem for companies, and I would help try to make it as efficient as possible.
So then, obviously, you have been working for 25 years and keeps on going in this profession. And my blunt question would be, but is it still interesting to handle new projects, or at least did you handle recently new projects at WC that you found really thrilling.
Yeah. I think the one thing that keeps it always changing is the pace of change of law. The global tax world is changing all the time. It's getting harder to do tax planning. That's the governments are trying to make it more difficult. But if you're interested in a career that's continuous learning, being challenged by the pace of change, accounting is that, and tax specifically in my instance was that. A couple of recent projects that I did before I retired. I had a U.S. company that I had worked with for a number of years. They had a large U.K. operation, and they bought another U.K. business. So as part of that planning, we would try to make the answer better from a tax perspective. So it involves lending money into the country to get a tax deduction for the interest, and then perhaps moving the note receivable outside the United States to get even better tax answer.
So you're optimizing taxes for companies.
Exactly. So we were working with the legal teams. We were working with the treasury teams at the company, along with the business people that were trying to integrate the new target into their existing operations. So that was a fascinating project. That went on for probably about 4 or 5 months from start to finish. Another transaction I worked on recently, a lot of times over the years, the organizational structure, so the legal entities in a large company's portfolio, they proliferate. So we have a whole bunch of legal entities and holding companies and different legal relationships amongst those entities. Sometimes that becomes burdensome and dead wood, if you will. It's no longer useful in the tax planning. So sometimes things we did in prior years we tear down in the future years, which is good from a
so you need to adapt to new situations all the time.
So this instance, the way we took out some legal entities and jurisdictions out of the organizational structure, we were able to do so to take out some tax attributes that were harmful for the company. All completely legal within the rules. It's just being smart about the way you're doing it, and that's tax planning at the end of the day. Is what is a smart way to structure your affairs to pay the least amount of tax possible? So that one went on for almost a year because there was lots of people in the company that were affected by that. Legal, treasury, accounting was involved, the business people, obviously. But very, very rewarding experiences, and got to work with people in different countries on all those transactions. So it was fascinating.
So international experience, if I understand correctly, long projects with diverse tasks. But then if I am a student and I want to pursue a career in accounting, is there any kind of specialization that I should take? For instance, you mentioned a law degree in your case, or is it also good to take some classes in business analytics, for instance?
I agree with that. I think the degree of specialization is just in any field, but accounting especially. You may think that if you choose tax or you choose audit or you choose consulting, which are the 3 major areas in accounting firms, that you're specializing already when making that decision. I would tell you, once you see what goes on inside these firms from a tax perspective, the degree of subspecialization, if you will, is amazing. There are people that do very, very narrow things for an entire career. So you get deep, deep specialization in these things, and that's what these large companies pay for, is that type of specialization. So I do think it's helpful for younger professionals, folks in school, to start thinking about what might be interesting to them, but also give themselves the opportunity to get inside a firm and work on different things, work with different groups, work on different projects, and see what really excites you. Because you're going to do this for a large portion of your life, and the firms will allow you to move around within the firms to different areas and different projects and things like that. So I always like to tell kids not to be so quick to specialize, but starting to keep your eyes open as to what the specialties might be to get in a firm, and then that subspecialization will start taking over.
So going back to this last point, let's say I start my career in auditing. Can I change my mind and pursue other careers because it's basically a springboard to other jobs?
Absolutely. Edwidge, I've seen people leave the firm because not everybody stays at the firms or stays in whatever job they are for their entire careers. I just did. But degree of opportunities that an accounting major has is amazing to me because it's truly the backbone of business, and you can speak the knowledge of the business and what's really the data that you need to make decisions from a business perspective. So for instance, I've seen people, obviously I worked with tax people, lots of people are VPs of tax now at major corporations. I have my mentor in the firm worked on a large merger transaction, one of the largest in history for PwC that was leading it on the tax side. And what happened sometimes in that he got a job offer from one of the companies involved, and now he's the treasurer of a large consumer products company. So not even in accounting necessarily now, he's in treasury. But some of that mergers and acquisitions work I talked about, we have lots of people that move on to a deals environment and they handle mergers and acquisitions at companies as well. So I think the world is just your oyster when you have an accounting degree. You can do so many different things. We've even had instances where partners have left and become CEOs of corporations. So it's just amazing to see what opportunities they have. And that can come early. A lot of times that can come in 5 years or less, that somebody can have a lot of experience that becomes very appealing to companies because they kind of view public accounting as maybe a training ground for future executives.
So very exciting, but if I start my career then in accounting, it seems to be very work intensive. So is it even possible to balance personal time with work?
Yeah, and I think I'm very comfortable in saying it's changed over the years. It was very much a busy season environment, and you would work really, really hard, lots of hours, long days. That has really eased over the last 10 years, I would say. The firms are very much more attuned to work-life balance matters and trying to look after their individuals. And so we would do at PwC, we would monitor the workloads of people. And if people were having too many hours, we would proactively address that and try to spread the work amongst everyone so that it was a more balanced workload. I would think during the pandemic as well, I witnessed that the firms shifted very quickly to a remote environment. And that has taken on.
Of course.
People really like that. And so we're adapting to that because we want to adapt and get the best talent and keep the best talent possible. And if you can do your job remotely and you can do it at different times of the day or different methodologies of working, if you want to do email more than live video calls, we all adapt to that. And so I think it's helped a lot more on the work-life balance. And I just think like that is a myth in accounting these days. Is surely we work hard. You don't.
But you can spare time for family.
Exactly. And it's not like somebody's watching you or saying, "Oh my gosh, this person had to leave at 3 today to attend their child's event or play." That's all expected and welcomed. And so. We just work with people. We trust people to do their jobs, and how you do it and what works best for you is I'm adaptable to that. So.
Okay. So, of course, the question that we all have, is it pretty lucrative to work in this profession?
It has exceeded my wildest expectations. And I would say that the starting salaries change rapidly. Okay. So when a new person gets hired at a firm such as mine, my former firm, we would, if you were highly rated, you would progress rapidly through the compensation range. And 10% raises were something that was ordinary for a highly rated individual. Bonuses were paid. Retention bonuses have been paid over the pandemic period. But I saw people that within the 3 to 6 year range do very, very well. Both being compensated monetarily within the firm, being compensated from a training perspective, getting a lot of great skills that are very, very marketable. Some of those people cashed in on that marketability and went to work in some of those jobs that I mentioned. Others chose to stay with the firm and continue to progress both in their responsibility and their compensation. So I found accounting to go, it's to me, it's a hockey stick. It goes up rapidly. And the firms won't hold you back. You will progress as fast as you can progress in your career. they're there to help you do that. So I think the compensation turns rapidly in favor of accounting.
So final notes. We are living with an ever-changing world where everything is automated and handled through algorithms, computers. Is it then the accounting profession a dying one?
I would say some of the routine functions have been automated.
Maybe.
Bookkeeping,
Yep.
the rudimentary tax form preparation has been automated. It has been outsourced from the firms to service centers around the world that maybe can do that first pass at repetitive routine work, and then it comes back to the practice office for review. I think that's a good thing for a young person because we had found that a lot of people just starting out didn't want to do that type of work. So what we're doing is
very repetitive, maybe.
Yes, we're removing those people one step above that to where they're more in a review capacity and getting them into the decision-making process as opposed to the just doing process. So I do not feel it's a dying profession whatsoever. I think it's more complicated than ever. And I would be excited as a young college student going into accounting because I hear from my former colleagues that there's a need for talent like they've never seen in their careers yet. And
high demand then.
High demand, good compensation, good training with plethora of opportunities as you progress in your career. And so I feel like if you're young, motivated, and ready to start your career, you can just hit the ground running in accounting, and you're always going to have a job, you're always going to be challenged, and you're always going to be rewarded.
Thank you so much for all those views on the accounting profession, and we will continue later on in other interviews.
Excellent. Thank you for your time.
Thanks.